Ever thought about how amazing it would be to have a price book with set prices for the work that you do, but you struggle to see how you could make it work because all your work is just so different? Tune into today's podcast where we bust open the myths around fixed pricing and discuss why this strategy is an absolute cracker for tradie-based businesses. Alrighty, g'day team. TFJ here, Tony Fraser-Jones in the hot seat with the Profitable Tradie podcast here with my sidekick and good mate Phil Smith. How you doing, buddy?
Always good, mate. Always good.
Yep.
Ready to roll.
How's the new addition to the team at home?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, we're going well. He's doing all right, so it's good. I found actually it's been the same, really. Like not a whole lot of difference so far to the dynamic.
So this is Phil and Myers' third bubba.
Yep, third one. Yeah. So no, it's been pretty the same. I mean, our kids never slept, so we're getting
different.
We're getting just as much no sleep as we got before, and I mean, other than that, he really just sleeps and eats. So no extra dynamics. Probably the only thing is, our 3-year-old is a bit sooky about not being the baby anymore.
Which happens. There's a shift in the balance of power.
Yeah, that's right. So she's exerting her power in other ways, let's say. Yeah.
You know, before you have your first kid, and if you're listening, you know, you might experience this, you get all these books and stuff about how to have kids that sleep all night.
Oh, yeah.
That's utter bollocks, right?
Yeah.
That's not even a thing, is it?
What you need to do is just be extremely lucky and then live your life. That's the formula.
I reckon.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a thing anyway. That's a whole nother pork barrel. What are we talking about today, buddy?
Mate, we're talking about fixed pricing. Basically, another way to look at that is having a price book for your services. So what is that? Well, basically, it's having a list of prices ready to go for the jobs that you do, rather than just doing the doing and then figuring out what you'll charge a client based on the time and materials you used. So depending on the type of work you do, it might be all or most or some of the work you do, but typically we use those fixed pricings in a price book. So lots of the time people freak out because when something goes wrong with a job and they lose money, they're worried their fixed price is not actually going to cut the mustard. But today we're going to bust that right open and talk about how this actually can work really, really well in most businesses.
Yeah, it's a killer strategy, and we're going to talk through why it works so well and how it can actually help you get better margins overall from your work. But it is a bit of a mind bend, and I know if you're listening straight out, you're like, yeah, but my work's different, or what happens if this goes wrong? I could lose money on that job, and that's often what stops people actually getting into this, is a bit of fear and uncertainty as well. So we definitely want to bust through that today as well.
Yeah, 100%. Should be a good one. And I'm sure you have a story to kick us off.
Well, I guess it's two stories. One of our longtime members, Brad Martin, actually appeared on the podcast a while ago. He started giving fixed prices just over the phone. Like, he just made up, people ring up, he's an electrician ringing up for a PowerPoint or an extractor fan in the bathroom or whatever it was. And he just started giving some prices over the phone. He's like, he kind of knew what it was and he added a bit extra. And, within two weeks, he had 10 fixed prices sorted out. So it's not that hard to do necessarily, but there is a little bit of science and thinking and actually psychology that goes behind it. And to think about it in another way, like we've recently built a house, built a new house for the family, which has been amazing. We went from a real little house where we had 3 kids in 1 bedroom to a bigger house where they all have their own bedroom, which is great, and I feel very grateful. But when we started out on that process, there's no way we weren't going to have a price for that. Like, you can't build a house and not know what the price is going to be. First off, you can't get finance from the bank. You don't know how big the checkbook needs to be, and it's kind of open-ended, which no one really wants when building a house. And the same sort of thing applies for most types of work. When you have a service provider or a contractor come to your home, you kind of want to know what you're up for.
100%. And I think it's not just in your home either. It's whenever you're working with anybody, right? Like, even in a business-to-business situation, it's really hard. If I'm the general contractor, it's hard for me to price my work when I don't know what my subcontractors are going to cost. And I'm trying to make a cut on their work, and I'm trying to give a price to the homeowner or whoever we're doing the work for. And if I don't know any kind of indication of what it's going to cost from my subbies, then how do I price my work? How do I price it all into one package? It just gets really complicated. It's hard.
It does. And if you think about, when we go and do service work or maintenance work, do some small installations, it's kind of odd that you don't have a fixed price that you give, your clients. This is assuming you haven't gone and quoted or put a bid together, which is a fixed price. But this is more about, not having to do it every time. You've got something actually there that you can do on the roll. It's kind of odd to expect someone to, use you without them knowing what they're up for. So
There's not really any other industry that's like that, right? Like, I mean,
Not really.
Imagine you turn up to a retail outlet. You go to buy a pair of shoes, and you say, "Hey, how much are these Nikes?" And retail assistant says, "Why don't you wear them for a month, and then I'll send you a bill, depending on how often you wear them and how they wear and whether or not the sole is wearing on one side, and I'll figure out how much they cost later." Would you take the Nikes?
Exactly. It's kind of weird. Like you say, you don't go to a retail shop without the price stickers. You look at that stuff before you buy. So
Yeah.
that's a really important part of the psychology that we want to dig into with the fixed pricing. And I guarantee you listen to this episode, by the end of it, you'll think really differently about this. It's going to make you some money.
Yeah, 100%. And there'll be people that are thinking right now, yeah, but it's not like a retail shop because, the amount of hours that I'm going to need to use or the amount of materials I need to use, it might change, it might vary, and just hold that thought. We're going to get to it.
100%.
We understand it's different, but there are some really key psychological factors here which actually do make quite a lot of similarities with that situation, and that's what we're going to bust right open. So
For sure.
So let's get into some problems, mate. Like, what happens if we don't have fixed pricing or any kind of indications?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you can actually get complaints about the invoices that you send out because your clients are surprised by the amount that you charge for the job. Like they didn't have a clue of what it would be at the get-go, and then they get the invoice after the job is done and they're like, flippin' heck. Like, this is way more than I thought. And, that leads to frustration and maybe some difficulty in getting paid or complaints or whatever it is.
Yep, 100%.
Second thing is you're always pricing work. Even if you don't price it in front, you have to price it when you write the invoice.
Yeah, 100%.
So you've got to figure out how long it took and what materials you used and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a huge pricing overhead going on.
Well, rather than tweaking something, you're starting from scratch every time.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
exactly.
It's just going to take longer.
Exactly. And for a lot of, other jobs that you can have fixed pricing for that you might otherwise go and quote or actually visit the client for, you can chop a lot of that out by having some fixed pricing around that. And it takes away that constant pricing overhead, which I'm going to be honest, most people don't realize how much time that takes, a massive amount of time. And you're not going to win all those quotes either, so a lot of it's wasted time.
Yeah.
You get problems getting paid because people are frustrated or they drag things out.
Yep.
I think that's a definite issue as well. And I reckon you lose out on some margin as well, which we're going to talk about.
Totally. And I think like one other thing to add there as well is, we talk about you can get complaints because your client ends up surprised with the invoice. You can also just get complaints because it takes time. Personally, I had some electrical work done at my house a while ago. And honestly, what happened was I had a rough idea of what I thought it would cost. I mean, I do have some experience in this industry. So I was like, yeah, cool. Like, I think it'll cost about this much money. And I said to the guy, hey, look, just do in charge, just charge up. I don't mind what it costs, mate. I'll just pay. And I probably shouldn't have said that because what ended up happening was he was like, oh, yeah, cool. Well, Phil's good for it. It'll, just charge him whatever. And then I ended up actually not getting invoiced for that for about 5 weeks after the job was completed, which separate issue. But the real hard thing was I'm sitting there the whole time with this money put to the side that I was like, cool, like don't spend that because that's got to pay for the electrical work. But I actually didn't know how much I needed. And so I'm sitting there with this money burning a hole in my pocket thinking, is it $1,000? Is it 800? Is it 1,200? I don't know. And so I'm just sitting there with this money and it made me really anxious. I was like, don't touch the money. What if I need it? What if it's more, which was actually a frustrating thing as a client as well, to not have some kind of at least indication of it'll be about this much. Because how do you know what to put aside?
100%. And look, I could help you with that. You could give the money to me. I'll look after it for you. I'm pretty good with that sort of thing.
That requires a level of trust,
Bro, that's cold. That's cold, man.
No, just kidding, man. So, hey, what if we do have fixed pricing? There's a lot to gain here, right?
Well, I think the first thing, which you may not really think about as the first thing, is that you actually provide an amazing service to your clients because you can give them a price and then you can give them certainty, and that's huge.
Yeah.
And that's actually really valuable, and we're going to dig into that. So that's the first thing. You can price once and you can reuse those prices forever, and that saves you so much time when you're doing your pricing or your bids or your quotes. So you just save a massive amount of time. You get more people saying yes to your quotes because they're quick, and we're going to talk about that. And you're going to have less trouble getting paid, guaranteed.
100%.
And we'll explain a little bit the psychology behind that as well, but it's going to improve your cash flow.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just a better experience overall for your client, for you, for everybody. I mean, again, I think about, that story I'm telling you with the electrical work. If that same invoice had come, it actually ended up being about $300 less than I thought it would be, which is interesting because probably what he was taking time with was figuring out exactly how much it should cost. But if he'd just thrown a whole bunch on the top, I was actually fine with that price. I would have just paid it immediately, and I would have been happier for the experience because I didn't have to worry about what it was going to cost. So, I mean, better for him, better for me. Nothing to lose, really.
100%.
So how do we do this?
Well, I'm going to talk about the psychology of billing and payment and getting paid for a start. So when you do time and materials, or time and terror, as I call it sometimes, which is, essentially you do the job, then you figure out how many hours it took, and what materials you used, and was there any other costs that you need to pass on, and then with your labour, you add on your markup. So you have your labour charge out, and you've got your materials, and you put your markup on, and you send the invoice out. Okay. So typically what happens with that is that can take a few days. You get it out, and maybe you're getting paid a week later or 2 weeks later. You should make it as close as possible as you can, but often that time stretches out.
Yep.
And so here's the thing: when someone gets you in to work on a job in their house or their business or whatever it is, they've got a problem. They've got pain right then. And if you can give them a fixed price, then you can get paid straight away, on completion. That's the ideal.
Yeah, 100%.
And when you do that, you're asking them to pay at the same time as they're experiencing the benefit, or the euphoria, if you like, of getting the problem solved.
Yeah,
totally. This is really powerful, really important psychology. So you give them a fixed price to know what they're up for, and then you get paid when it's done, and they're in that honeymoon period of, this is great, problem's gone away, I'm feeling great about this. So they're associating your service with benefit and pleasure, if you like, or removal of pain, which is kind of like the same thing as pleasure in this situation.
Yeah.
The trick comes with when you do time and materials. If payment is then due sometime after the fact, the pleasure, the experience of getting rid of the problem has gone.
Yeah.
And it's all pain. It's like, oh, I have to pay now?
Yeah. That's right.
And that's a completely different sort of psychological setup. So that's important.
Well, there's a dissociation, right?
That's
there's a dissociation between, sure, when I'm getting it done, there's the pain I'm in trying to solve my problem. And there's also going to be the pain of payment, but they kind of roll into one as long as I can pay and have that payment, go out. That actually eases the pain of having to pay at the same time as I ease the pain of the problem I initially had. And it all kind of feels like one. But if they're separated, then initially I have my pain that I'm in with the problem gets solved, I'm out of that pain, I feel good, I recover from that, and now I have a brand new pain of payment, which is dissociated, and instead I now look at the payment as, oh, I've got to pay for that now, where am I going to get the money from?
And they associate pain or potential unhappiness with your business, which is not what we want. So
rather than the initial problem.
Than the problem that you solved. And the thing about fixed pricing is it allows you to get payment straight away. And if you are running a fixed pricing system, you should be getting payment on completion.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you?
Why not?
Yeah. And occasionally that may be slightly difficult with a business-to-business setup if you're on business terms.
Sure.
But in general, wherever possible, you get payment on completion.
Yeah, and if you're working for homeowners, honestly, they have the money before they commission the work. Like, nobody is like, hey, I'm going to get a $20,000, little renovation here or fix-up job there, and I'm going to get that done and get the tradie to start working on it now. I have no money. I'll figure that out somehow in the next couple of weeks. No one does that. They have the money first, and then they get you to do the work, and the money's sitting in their bank account, burning a hole in their pocket.
Well, that's true, and also with having a fixed price, they know what they're up for. So that's important, and you tell them that payment's required on completion. That's part of the inquiry process, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. I think we've done a podcast on the inquiry process, so go and check that out.
But it's important to remember that homeowners are not businesses. They're not waiting on their cash cycle to come back around or waiting for a couple of jobs to come in or be invoiced so that then they can have the cash to pay your invoice. They have the money. They have it right there and then, so you might as well get it now. And this is all part of it. Is if you can provide that price, you can get it sooner.
Yep. And I think the thing that is important to understand with fixed pricing and having a price book where you can actually go out on site, out into the field, and tell someone, yep, change this ballcock. This is how much it's going to be right then and there. Or put an extractor fan in. This is how much it's going to be, or an incinerator, or whatever it is. it's a great way to provide value because you are giving a price up front.
Yeah.
And so they know what they're up for. And there is tremendous value in that. Like certainty is important. And as we said, most other businesses operate like this. I don't know why in service contractors we don't. It's kind of weird in a way.
Yeah.
And otherwise, if you don't do that, your clients are left with basically how much is this going to cost? It's like a blank check. And certainty is value. And I think it's important that we all get that through our heads. If we can provide certainty, that is value. That is value that we can charge for as well.
100%. And I think like with this, if anyone's worried about, but if I give a fixed price, put a little bit extra fat in it, just in case things go wrong, which we'll tackle in a minute. I think the thing is you can worry, what if I'm pricing myself out against other guys? But the fact is, if you're getting an inquiry, if they are shopping around, it's probably going to go like this. Hey, I want an extractor fan put in. And you're like, cool, it'll be about this much money. And then they call the next person, I want an extractor fan put in. And the person goes, cool, we'll come out and have a look. And then the next person will come out and have a look. Next person will come out and, quote the job. The only person that gave them any indication of the price is you. So in that case, they're probably just going to go with it. They'll take it as gospel. And with the other people now, they have to jump through a hoop of taking time off work to be at home so that you can meet them there, quote the job, take more time to wait for that quote, do that against multiple people. I mean, they're not going to go through all of those hoops and trials and tribulations and waiting and taking time off work when they know the price. You told it to them. And now it's a decision about whether I want the thing or not. So actually, you got nothing to lose.
Well, the key thing is here, when you are able to give people certainty on price and you've got it mapped out, you can get the money in your bank account often before a lot of people can even get to site to quote the job.
That's right.
That is amazing service. And we've seen this with our members. We work with thousands of people. Speed and certainty is incredible.
And at that point, people don't shop around. They don't even look at the other people. They don't even get someone to site to quote the job because the job is being done right now.
That's right.
And they're solving their problem. So they're happy. Why would they keep shopping around at that point? It would be a waste of their own time. And people don't like wasting their own time.
100%.
So
now there's a whole bunch more to this, which we're not going to go into in a big deal today. But when you get inquiries come through, you do need to charge a service fee to actually go to the job. And you tell the clients that over the phone, and like I said, we dealt with that in the inquiry process episode we did a while ago. So you're already at site. You've already been paid to turn up and to quote the job. Then you've got the fixed price book. And if you're there and they've agreed to your service fee, they're going to do the job with you anyhow.
100%. 100%.
You're just there. It's a no-brainer.
So I suppose the next thing is people are going to be wondering, what if they undercook the fixed price? So you're making your fixed prices. What if I undercook it? What if I've made them, too skinny in my margins?
Yeah, and look, that's going to happen sometimes. Sometimes it will go south, and you're going to get a bit of a toweling up. You're going to be on the losing end. But there's a way to deal with it. So what you want to do is you want to create the price once with all the details, all the items in the job. Use a high hourly rate. So use a much higher charge out rate than you normally use for your time and materials invoices. So if you're charging, let's say $100 per hour, charge $115 for your fixed price. Use that as the benchmark, and then add in a margin for error
100%.
With each fixed price.
Yeah.
So what that means is then you have another 10% on top of that fixed price, and that is what we call the insurance policy.
Yeah.
So every time you do a job, you're taking a little extra cut because the 1 out of 10 that goes south, that's where you draw back on the insurance policy. So you're actually putting some fat in the system because sometimes it will go south and you're like, okay, that's fine. The other jobs I've done have worked well. This one, there's a bit of stuff that we couldn't quite see, and there was, the wall wasn't quite right, or there's a nog in the way, whatever. You just work with that.
Yep.
But that on the other jobs you've worked it out, and you're still winning overall. That's how you do it. So you do need to charge more, and you'll be able to get the jobs at more because of the certainty and the value and all the things we've talked about. But then you can collect on the job that goes south.
Yeah, that's right. Which means that if one goes wrong, it's okay. Because, you've already made up for that in the other jobs. And it'll be seldom. It's not, if every second job is wildly different to your fixed price, your fixed price needs changing.
That's right. You need really more fixed prices.
That's it.
Yep.
You might need more variables, so you have more different types of fixed prices, or you might just need to add more fat into your fixed pricing system so that you can make up for the fact that actually, 1 out of 2 times that I do this job, it ends up more expensive than I thought.
Yeah.
So
that's a problem with your fixed
That's a problem
price.
with your fixed price, not
the
with the
process.
system.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think that's important to note.
And so the big thing is, question I guess, Phil, as people have is, well, look, my jobs are too different. They're all different. Now, how am I actually going to create fixed prices for all these different types of jobs that I do? Well, there's a few things to that, right? I mean, maybe don't do quite so many jobs. That might be one thing, because that's challenging, but, that's an aside.
Different story.
Different story.
Yeah.
Few things here. 80-20 rule for a start. So, 20% of the work you do, 20% of the type of jobs will be 80% of the work you do. There's a lot of repeat jobs.
Yeah,
in
100%.
In most businesses.
Yeah.
You might be slightly different, but general rule, a lot of the jobs are the same.
Yeah.
And so you start with those, right?
And there's obviously, so just to make that real clear, for anyone that didn't quite catch it, 20% of the types of jobs that you do will make up 80% of the volume of your schedule. And so that means that the other 80% of all different kind of niche jobs that you can do, little variables and stuff, probably is only about 20% of your total workflow. So what we're getting at here is that, you can utilize that 80-20 rule to start with that top 20%. And if you have fixed prices for that, you've saved 80% of your pricing time.
That's right. So that's huge. And just to give you a flavor of, how far you can go with this, it's not just, put a double PowerPoint in or, put a new faucet in. They're pretty easy things to do a fixed price for, and you should 100% have that. And maybe for faucets or taps, you've got 2 or 3 fixed prices for different types of taps or faucets.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
That's right.
But let's say for drainage, you can have block drain. You could have a block drain dig under 3 meters of grass as a fixed price, or a block drain dig under 3 meters of concrete.
Yeah.
Or 6 meters under grass, or 6 meters under concrete. So you can really, use your imagination for what fixed prices you end up creating.
100%. And as far as where to start, just go to your schedule, look at what type of work's there, and just say, hey, what's popping up all the time? And start with that. Easiest way to eat an elephant's one bite at a time. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people listening to us thinking, wow, I'd love to create that, but geez, who has the time? I'm like, cool. So just start with your most common type of work, and then move on to the next most common, and you'll chip away at this over time. But you'll find that once you've made a fixed price for 10, 15 different types of work or different types of job, you've actually made a real good dent, because that'll be your most common stuff, like we said.
Well, and the good news is now you've saved some time, because you don't have to keep pricing that work. You've got more time to do more prices.
That's right.
Happy days.
Yeah, so it's a compounding effect, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a real important place as far as where do we start. So there's a bunch of other stuff that we really should talk about here. I think some really important points. So I think in this case, one thing is that you do actually have to price jobs anyway when you do the invoice up. So as far as the time saving here, you are actually making these fixed prices constantly.
Every time you do an invoice.
Yeah, you just make the same one again and again and again. So, if you're worried about that time, I think that's an important point.
100%. And you got to price the job anyway, as you said, so when you do the invoice. Another thing that you may not have thought of is, if people get a fixed price, then they don't care who shows up to do it. And what I mean by that is you could show up with one of your tradespeople and an apprentice.
Yeah.
If you do a time and materials invoice, and there's time on it for the tradesperson or the technician and the apprentice, how often do you get a client saying, oh, the apprentice just stood there watching?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that's it's a bit unreasonable, because how else are you going to train people? But you have a fixed price. It's like, well, that's your problem, not their problem. So that's cool. I think you want to make sure with this that you have some good systems. So you want to make sure that the materials coming through from your merchant, that you have, updating material costs.
Yeah.
And you should do this anyhow. And it's amazing how many of the people we work with is they haven't updated their supplier bill, like their merchant pricing, which, frankly, these days goes up every 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you've got automatic updates coming into your system, so that can flow through to your price book, because you could, get your margins eaten out there real quick. So that's important.
That's huge.
And the last thing is huge. This is absolutely critical. This is what brings it all together, is back costing.
Yeah.
So you got the fixed price, which is great, winning, smash the prices out, get the jobs done, get paid. But it is absolutely critical you go back and actually cost the jobs that you've done to see how they're tracking.
Yeah.
That way you can see, well, actually this particular type of job, it just keeps running over on hours. We're not really hitting the margin that we aim for, and that means you've got a problem with your fixed price. So you need to adjust it, or make another fixed price, maybe split one into two.
Yeah, there might be a variable that pops up often, in which
Yep.
case you have a variable to your fixed price you're making. And I think like this really feeds into something here, which is people will say, oh, I can't have a fixed price for everything. Some things have a lot of variables, right? For example, if we're doing a bathroom renovation, it's like, yeah, cool, there's a lot of stuff that's pretty straightforward, but also like, is it a freestanding bath and I'm going to need to drill through concrete, Is it the kind of thing where I have 3 different types of vanities, or, there's might be 20 types of vanity choices in my little book from my supplier. There might be, 100 different types of shower, and that's where what you can do is that you can start off with a pre-build. So, in your job management software or whatever you're using, where, just pick a few options. Rather than having 20 different showers they can pick from, just pick 3. Hey, here's the budget, here's the medium, and here's the Rolls Royce. Now, same for vanities. Here's the budget, the medium, the Rolls Royce. For baths, budget, medium, Rolls Royce. A lot of behind-the-wall stuff, it can be standard, right? I mean, like, no one sees it anyway. I'm not choosing exactly what, type of piping I want. But the thing is if you have a few options, you have them in a pre-build, then all you need to do is say, here's your options. They choose one, and that's the one you keep in the template.
That's perfect. And the pre-builts can have all the materials and the labour components behind that. For example, if it's a freestanding vanity, you know what goes into that for labour and materials. And so, okay, you may not be able to do a fixed price for the whole bathroom right off the bat. That's probably not reasonable.
Yeah, exactly.
But you've got maybe 6 or 7 components that you just pick out, and it allows you to put that price together, super quick. That's
right. And if you keep the choices to a lower number, I think that's really the key in making those pre-builds work. Because like I said, if it's like, hey, choose your vanity here, and I've got 20 choices, it's really hard to pick, and it's really hard for me to make those pre-builds because there could be different variables with each option.
100%.
But if I've got 3 vanities you can pick from, then it's like, cool, like I can have a pre-build for whatever's going to be required for eeach one of those vanities, and I just literally select which one I want, bang, that bit's done, move on to the next part. People really only want to pick their front of wall fixtures anyway, so there's actually not that much stuff to choose between, right? As long as you keep it simple.
Yeah, you build the system so that it works for you, give the client some choice, but also make it, quickly and speedily implementable. Is that a word even?
Yeah, I think implementable is a word. If it's not, we'll make it a word.
Yeah, make it a word.
Yeah, we can use that.
It's a big word.
Yeah.
But you get the picture, right?
100%.
Super helpful.
So the point is this is doable regardless of the type of work. So should we recap how to actually put this together? Because there's a couple of steps, right?
Yeah, I think the first thing, if you're listening and you're excited by this, number 1, you should be because it's killer. And number 2 is make a list of the top 10 most common jobs. That's your starting point. So just write down the top 10 most common jobs. Get 3 previous invoices as the starting point.
Yep.
Simple as that. So 3 previous invoices. So you've basically got the components of the fixed price there.
Yep.
Build out the price with all the material and labour components.
Yep.
Use a higher hourly rate than you normally do at Charge It, maybe $10 or $15 higher.
Yep.
Add 5 to 10% contingency on the top.
Yep.
Boom, you got your fixed price. It's done.
100%.
Start using it and then start back costing it to check that it's it's on point.
Yep.
Simple
and then
as
you're
that.
away.
Beautiful.
On to better profits.
That's right.
I think I just want to say one last little sign-off thing here, which is that there's another spin-off effect of this, which actually makes it way easier to train your staff as well. Because if I've got a fixed formula for this is how we do our top 10 most common jobs, this is what's involved, this is how long it should take, blah, 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 then like the staff can get really used to that formula, and you can train that formula really well, and you're going to get actually higher efficiencies in the end anyway. Because there's no variables, there's no thinking. You can systemize that process because you've systemized the pricing, you know what's involved, you can systemize the process as well, which is also a great spin-off.
100%, man. You're a smart man.
Yeah, I like to think sometimes.
That's good.
Should we land this plane?
We should. So creating a price book is that you can use will save you hours and allow you to charge higher prices. It's going to eliminate invoicing complaints and mean that you convert more inquiries and you provide great customer service. It's a bit of a no-brainer. It's just going to take a little bit of work up front. But you've got to do that work anyway if you do the invoice later. So it's time to get busy on your price book.
Hey, I hope you liked the video. Check out all the other videos in the channel and like and subscribe.